Welcome to the Nutrition and Wellness for Myeloma chapter. My name is Audrey Burton-Bethke, and I am the Myeloma Crowd Community Manager. We have Katie Braswell joining us today, and I will introduce her formally in just a moment. Today's session will be recorded, and this recording will be sent out to all registrants within 48 hours of the event's conclusion. A special thanks to our sponsors, without whom this would not be possible: Bristol Myers Squibb, Amgen Oncology, Karyopharm Therapeutics, AbbVie Adaptive Biotechnologies, Genentech Oncopeptides, and Takeda Oncology. Today's topic will be smart snacking, how to choose a satisfying snack. Throughout the year, we have been talking about which foods to choose and which foods to avoid, especially when it comes to mealtime. But I think now most of us have a better understanding of what's good for us and what might be, foods to avoid from the different specialists that we've heard. But what happens when we're hungry for a snack, or even when we're feeling stressed and the go-to is to stress eat? How can we balance our cravings to choose a healthy yet satisfying snack? I'm excited to hear from Katie today, as I'm in much need of this advice. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Katie Braswell. Katie joined the HealthTree Foundation as the Community Director for AML in 2021. So she's basically my counterpart for AML instead of myeloma. She is a registered dietitian who previously worked at the VA hospital in Dallas, Texas, where she coached veterans with blood cancer and their caregivers on how to use nutrition to improve their treatment outcomes and minimize cancer-related side effects. Katie is passionate about health education and patient empowerment, and she believes that food is foundational to cultivating a life of health and happiness. Katie, thanks for joining us today, and the time is now yours.
Thanks, Audrey. I'm happy to be here with all of you today. So excited to talk about nutrition, which is so near and dear to my heart. I could talk about it for hours. So thanks for joining. And we'll jump into it. I'm here to talk to you guys today about choosing a satisfying snack. Audrey hit on some of these things already, but I am a registered dietitian. I have a master's degree in clinical nutrition. I recently joined the HealthTree Foundation in January of this year. And I am loving being Audrey's counterpart. I'm working on bringing a lot of these programs that we have available for myeloma patients, and also making them available to patients with a different blood cancer called acute myeloid leukemia. So we have a lot of really fun things rolling out soon on that side of our foundation. Prior to that, I worked at the VA hospital in Dallas, Texas. I worked really closely with veterans who had all sorts of cancer. And I worked with them and their caregivers on how to optimize nutrition before, during, and after their treatment. A few fun facts about me. I love coffee, espresso in particular. I played soccer in college, so I love to be active. I'm working in my garden a lot this summer and packing my bags again because we're getting out into the world now, which is really exciting times. So today I have a few objectives for us. Number one, I'm going to give an overview of snacking. Why do we snack? Snacking, the word snacking sometimes gets a bad rap. So we'll talk about how it can actually be beneficial for our health if done smartly. Number two, we'll talk about my smart snacking formula, how to build a satisfying snack. What are some parameters for you to consider when putting together your snacks? And then we'll talk about additional tips. So it's not just about what we eat, it's why we eat. And we'll talk a little bit more about that and mindful snacking, how to bring some presence to our choices and the snacking environment. So I'll give you an overview now of why we snack. There is potentially a long list for this, but we do know, I read a survey recently that snacking in America is at an all-time high. And I guess you could probably guess that this is related to the pandemic. We've been at home a lot more. We have access to food, probably a little bit more so than we did when we were more out and about. So let's talk about why we're snacking. There's a list here. Hopefully, the majority of your snacking is due to the first option, true hunger. This is really what snacks are intended for, is to curb our hunger and allow us to make it until mealtime. So as we go through this list, I want you to maybe try to highlight for yourself, what are the main reasons that you're snacking currently? Other than true hunger, here's some other reasons. So maybe your meal, so if you're snacking, let's say mid morning, maybe your breakfast wasn't properly balanced. Maybe it didn't contain the amount of calories or nutrients that your body needs, or maybe you didn't eat at all. So unbalanced meals or even skipped meals can be a big reason why we'll turn to snacks. Boredom, certainly a very big one. We often eat to give us something to do. Emotions, another one I find to be very common. We really eat for all the emotions. I don't think there's an emotion that I can think of that might not be tied back to food. So anxiety, sadness, stress, some of those more negative emotions can trigger us to turn to snacking and to comfort ourselves with food. We can also snack for more positive emotions. So we can eat to celebrate. We can eat for happiness. Sometimes we view food as a reward. I have that as our last option here. We're trying to treat ourselves for something we accomplished, or something that we're excited or happy about. We can snack because of habit. So I think about when I think of this, kind of the classic ice cream bowl before bed. I know for my husband, this is a bowl of cereal every night before bed. Sometimes we snack when we're not hungry. We're just so used to it because of the clock. It's something that we do at this time of day every day, regardless of hunger. We can snack because of location. Think about your trip to the movie theater. You might not be hungry, but the popcorn's there and it smells delicious. So we grab that up. When you're at work, there's snacks readily available and we might snag some of those just because we see it and it's there. Sporting events are another good example of this. There's lots of concessions and we see others eating it, so we might be prone to mimic that and snack as well. Peer pressure, so you see others doing the snacking, it encourages you to want to do the snacking. Cravings, so we might be wanting something sweet or salty and we might choose a snack because of that. And again, rewarding or treating ourselves. I'd like to highlight that doing any of these things is not necessarily bad. Doing them periodically is fine. It's part of being human. It's part of the eating process. But when it becomes more of a regular occurrence, a habit, something we're doing day in and day out, and it's either causing poor health or not allowing us to achieve our health goals, that's when we want to recognize that, maybe identify it not being so good, and try to investigate and do something about it. Like I mentioned in the objective, smart snacking can actually be beneficial for our health. Oftentimes when we think of snacks, we think of, munching on chips and cookies and ice cream and all of the packaged foods, but it doesn't have to be that way. If we snack smartly, we can actually support a very healthy lifestyle, and snacking can help us to achieve some of our health and wellness goals. And I have some listed here for you to think about. So snacking, like we said, helps us bridge the gap between meals. And so it can potentially help keep your energy levels up in between those meal times. It can help balance our blood sugar so we don't notice those highs and lows. We're not on this blood sugar roller coaster. And that ultimately gives us energy and makes us feel good. It can also help with our mental clarity, our ability to think, reduce brain fog, help us concentrate. So regular intake throughout the day, kind of this classic 3 meals, 2 snacks kind of recommendation you might have heard before, can really help blood sugar balance, overall concentration, helping you to feel and perform your best. Snacking can be a quick way to nourish your body. So if you're on the go, certainly grabbing a snack is better than nothing. If you are hungry, if you know you're going to be skipping a meal, bringing those snacks with you or having them before you leave the house is going to help you to feel better and function better overall. Snacking can be a great way to boost your vitamin, mineral, antioxidant intake. So it gives us those added extra chances to consume more nutrients outside of our meals, hopefully meeting our full needs for those nutrients for the day. It can help us avoid overeating. So if you're going long spans of time, let's say from lunch to dinner, and in between those is about 6 hours of time, you're more likely to overeat at dinner. You're more likely to go back for seconds and thirds and feel kind of like on this binge, like I can't stop eating, I'm so hungry. So snacking can help to curb that and can help us to eat more appropriate portions, more spread out throughout the day. There's been studies to show that snacking can help lower cholesterol and blood pressure. And we know that snacking can help us achieve our weight goals, whether that may be weight gain, weight maintenance, or weight loss. It can help with all of those depending on your choices and how you choose to snack smartly. So while snacking can be really great for us, snacking often goes awry. I often get the question, why do I snack so much? We can get carried away. And there are lots of reasons why this may happen. It's important to note, though, as we go through this, that snacking too much is not a lack of willpower. There's often an underlying reason as to why this is occurring. So instead of being hard on yourself, beating yourself up, I ate too much, I'm upset with myself, do some investigative work and try to figure out what these underlying reasons for overeating, over snacking may be. I have some listed here for you. So a big reason, again, are those unbalanced meals. So maybe for breakfast, you just had a cup of coffee and a slice of toast or a croissant. That meal is not balanced enough. It's straight carbohydrate that you're getting from the pastry. No protein, no fiber, no fat, really, no staying power to that meal. So you're more likely to want to snack sooner and to want to snack quite a lot. You're not eating frequently enough. So think about, are you skipping those meals often? And that's triggering you to snack and snack quite a lot. Are you using food to cope with emotion? So are you using snacks as comfort? And if so, think about maybe what some alternative coping strategies may be for you that are a bit more of a healthier response. Can you go for a walk? Can you call a friend? Whenever you become triggered, what could you do instead? It's nice to write those down and have them to reference whenever emotional eating begins to creep in. Maybe you're engaged in distracted eating. So think about when you're eating in front of the TV, when you're eating a snack straight out of the big bag, you're much more likely to eat more when you're engaged in television or you're on your computer. When you're multitasking when you eat, you're much more likely to eat more. So see if you're eating, even your meals too, if you're eating distracted a lot of the time, your intake is going to be much larger, most likely. You might not be practicing what we call mindful eating. And this is a practice I really enjoy teaching, and we'll talk about this towards the end. It's kind of the opposite of distracted eating, being fully present in the moment when you eat your snacks. Think about when you're eating your snacks, is your mind wandering? Are you thinking about other things, or are you sitting there and actually enjoying the taste, the texture, the smell of what you're consuming? And maybe you're snacking a lot because you're influenced by external factors. Commercials are a big one. We as humans, when we see things, it's very triggersome for us to want those things. That's why advertisements work so well. We see this really appetizing meal on the TV screen, and it makes us think about it and want to go out and get it. Are we being influenced by other people? Do we have the peer pressure at play? Do we have what I like to call food pushers in our life, where you say no thank you, but they continue to encourage you to accept the food that they're offering? That often requires a very nicely put conversation with the people you identify who are doing that in your life. It's okay to snack if you're truly hungry. And we'll talk about how to assess hunger in a second. But I encourage you, as you approach snacking, to really listen to your body. What is it telling you? Is it time to eat, or are you eating for other reasons? So let's talk about this smart snacking formula, so you have a good idea of how to put together very smart and balanced snacks. So there's really three main points I want to highlight here. When deciding on snacks, I want you to look beyond the calories. Oftentimes we get too hung up there. We see these 100-calorie packs and we think they're better than kind of anything else we can choose. So there's more to eating well than just calorie intake. Even if you are focused on weight change, look beyond the calories. And what I want you to start focusing on when you're putting together these snacks are what I have listed in number 2. So I want all of your snacks to contain protein. And the grams you see, I have 5 to 20 grams as a recommendation. And that is a pretty big range. And I have that range there because it really varies person to person. Our protein needs, mine versus yours, are very different. And if you want to know what those are, I really recommend working with a professional. But a good rule of thumb is 5 to 20, and there should always be protein in your snack. So this should be a component that's always there when you're building smart snacks. We want snacks to contain fiber, so the combination of protein and fiber really helps the snack to stay with us, to make it satisfying, to hold us over until our next meal. It helps us to feel fuller longer. So I really recommend looking at the label and trying to find snacks, if they're packaged, to have at least 3 grams or more of fiber per serving. That's a decent amount. When you're looking at added sugar, we want this to be low. We want this to be as low as possible. So a good rule of thumb is less than 5 grams. And we definitely want our snack to contain color. So the color hopefully coming from some sort of fruit or vegetable. And this is where we're getting this concept of nutrient density from our snacks. We're getting those positive vitamins, minerals, antioxidants. That generally comes from color, which which ultimately comes from produce. So protein, fiber, and color are what you want. Added sugar is what you don't want. You don't have to get super lost in the label. I highlighted where you find these components on the label on the right, as kind of a quick reference when you're in the store. But ultimately, you want combinations of food. You don't just want to eat protein by itself. You don't just want to eat something sugary by itself. You want to make these combinations, and I'll give you some examples here in a second. And oh, sorry, I was going to highlight one more thing on there. Lastly, you want your snack to be filling. So if you're eating something, do a little test and see how long it stays with you. So generally, a good rule of thumb is to be full after your snack for about 2 hours. If you find yourself hungry after about 30 minutes, it means it wasn't balanced and you need to reevaluate. So do a little test with yourself. You might find something that you'll feel really hungry quickly after eating would be those simple carbohydrates, those foods that are high in added sugar. They just don't stay with us very long. Okay, so here's an example of a smart snacking using the formula that I just mentioned. So you can do this by looking at the food label, looking at those different components. So on the left here, we have a traditional strawberry yogurt that most of us have all had before. I pulled out those pieces of the formula for you underneath. So pretty low in protein. This has about 6 grams, pretty high in added sugar. We said we wanted it to be less than 5, and this has 13 for the container. No fiber at all, and no real fruit despite what the package shows you. It's a little bit misleading. There's a picture of fruit. You'd think there would be fresh fruit inside. There might be, you know, like the little mushy strawberries at the bottom, but that doesn't really count. What we can do to make it a smart snack, we can swap that out for a different type of yogurt pretty easily. The one at the bottom, the Oikos 000, is one I really like to recommend because it has no added sugar. And that's a pretty big difference, going from 13 grams to 0. Doesn't taste like plain yogurt either. It's sweetened with stevia. Some people love stevia, some people don't, but you'll have to decide that for yourself. That one's pretty high in protein, so 15 grams versus the 6 in the classic yogurt. This one actually has fiber added to it, so 3 grams there, checking our box of fiber. And you get extra bonus points if you mix things into this yogurt. So mix in some fresh fruit, mix in some berries or nuts and seeds to give it that extra nutrient density, that color that we're looking for. You could also do this by looking at the example at the top. So choosing a plain full fat Greek yogurt will give you quite a lot of protein instead. So 18 grams of protein here, no added sugar, and you get fiber from the additional toppings that you choose to add to it. So those sliced strawberries, the nuts, the blueberries, things like that are an additional way to pump up the fiber content and protein as well, if you're considering the nuts and seeds. So you can see just by making a few swaps, if you're fixated on yogurt, kind of going through your options, looking at those labels can really help guide you to build a smart, satisfying snack. Here's another way of thinking about it. If you're not so hung up on looking at labels, if you get pretty decent at identifying your food groups, you can eyeball this. This is a quicker way. So instead of just eating crackers, whole wheat crackers by themselves, here you'll find you're probably hungry pretty soon after. So it doesn't have that staying power. There's no protein here. You're getting a little bit of fiber if you choose a whole wheat cracker. Instead, if we pump it up, By adding some peanut butter, we're getting the protein factor there, and we're adding some sliced apples. We're getting that color, that fiber. We build a much better, well-rounded snack. So we're taking a single ingredient and we're turning it more into a combination snack. Here's a good picture of how to put these combinations together. So picking something on your left, these are your color, these are your more fibrous containing foods, and combining it with options there on the right. 1, 2 options maybe, and you can create a really well-rounded snack. Examples here may be baby carrots and hummus, crackers and cheese, a little popcorn and dark chocolate, or maybe some cherry tomatoes and a hard-boiled egg. We're pairing these together to get all of those components in the formula that we talked about. Here's some other ideas I wanted to throw at you just so you can begin to compile a list of things that might sound good. Again, hummus is a great one because it's high in protein and fiber, and then you're filling the rest of your plate with all these different colorful veggies here, so you can use it as a dip. I really like different toast combinations as snacks. So you have a toasted whole wheat slice of bread, and then you add layers on top. So here we have avocado and tomato for color. We have the hard-boiled egg sliced for protein. We can do different Greek yogurt dips. So Greek yogurt with cinnamon is a really good dip you can quickly whip up, and dipping fruit into that gives you the color. And then you can do different combos like grapes, cheese, and your whole wheat crackers. So these are different combination ideas that fulfill the formula that are pretty easy to put together. Some more ideas. So I have a smoothie here, and I approach that pretty carefully because smoothies can be made pretty poorly a lot of the time. So you want to incorporate that protein in there. Protein powders are fine. You want to make sure they don't have a lot of added sugar in them. Your fruit, your frozen fruit is going to be great for color. I'm a fan of throwing in some peanut butter or avocado, maybe a handful of spinach to get more of that color and fiber. So really how you put together the smoothie matters. But lots of different combinations here you can save for your references. I really like these energy bites that I have in the middle bottom row here. If you Google energy bites, you can find endless different recipes of how to make them, but they're usually made with oats as a base. You can throw in different flavorings like cinnamon, different nuts, nut butters, dates maybe. But these are nice to whip up if you're on the go a lot. You can grab two. Definitely better than skipping meals or snacks and ignoring your hunger altogether. So yeah, these are lots of really good ideas to keep handy. So let's talk beyond the formula and talk a little bit about additional tips for making our snacking smart. So I like to use this hunger scale when trying to determine when to snack. It can be a really nice guide if you're able to identify your feelings and be in tune with your body. I'd encourage you to try this out over the next week. So honoring our hunger and fullness cues can help us determine when to start snacking and when to stop snacking. So think about your hunger on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being you're starving, you're about to pass out, you're miserable, you're dizzy, you need to sit. All the way up to 10, I think of this as like Thanksgiving Day stuffed. Like you ate too much, you have to lay down, you're super sleepy, you're extra uncomfortable, and you never want to be at either. Um, when it comes to listening to your body, you want to avoid extremes, because if you get to 1, you're going to overeat. And if you get to 10, you definitely overate. And this is where those feelings of shame and regret and being angry with yourself start coming into play. Those negative thoughts begin to creep in when you get to 10. So really, you want to start snacking when you're at about a 3 or a 4. So 3 would be you notice a stomach growl, but it's not rampant. 4 would be you're beginning to feel a little bit hungry. Like if you think about food, you're like, yeah, I could eat something and be happy about that choice. You want to stop eating when you get to about a 5 or a 6. So 5 being satisfied. You would be completely okay stopping. You're not uncomfortable in the least, but you're also not hungry anymore to where your body is telling you it needs another bite. 6 would be slightly full, so you can notice a little bit of fullness in your stomach. You feel pleasant still. You haven't hit the point of feeling uncomfortable. So you want to keep it more neutral, more in these middle grounds to avoid these extremes. And this can really help you to regulate intake, being in tune with your body and knowing what it's telling you and what it needs is the best way to regulate weight overall, without even having to count calories. This concept comes from a concept of intuitive eating. So we're really in tune with our body's cues. And it can take a while to form if you've never really thought about it before. So give it a whirl, try it out, but know that it's a bit of a process to learn about yourself in this way. So you can practice this with your meals, you can practice this with your snacks. It's important to ask yourself, what's my number prior to eating? Certainly after eating, and even during eating. So during the snacks, stop and check in with yourself. So you don't overshoot. You don't end up at an 8 or a 9 because you weren't practicing that intuitiveness during the middle of the snack. So check in halfway through and see where you are, and that can help you to decide whether to continue or not. Another tip is to be very mindful of health claims. So companies put almost anything on the front of packaging to get you to buy it. They want to grab your attention, they want your money. So don't fall prey to some of the words that they use. It can actually be pretty confusing. Marketing is powerful. And so a lot of these terms, we're inclined to think that they're better choices for snacks, but they're not necessarily. Some examples here. The word natural gets thrown around so much, and there's literally no definition behind natural. You can call any food product natural regardless. Like there's no definition. There's nothing the company has to meet in order to use the word natural. So like, for example, you'll see these natural Cheetos. Like, what does that mean? We're more inclined to choose the natural product and think that it's a healthful snack. But that's a really big one you could easily fall trap to, because natural sounds so much better than original Cheetos. But I haven't compared the ingredients, but I imagine they're very, very similar. Another one is organic. So I have people tell me I'm healthy because I eat 100% organic. And that may be fine for somebody to do, but you can find all sorts of junky organic products, like the example I have here, these veggie straws. This is kind of a double whammy that really gets me. They're calling it organic, and they're also highlighting the word veggie to make it sound more healthful, like you're eating carrots and bell peppers and celery. It's not comparable. This is a very processed product, and has no business being compared to fresh produce. Other examples would be things like where they highlight whole grains. So like you have these whole grain goldfish. When you're really trying to choose a whole grain product or a high fiber food, you want to make sure you look at the ingredients, and whole grain, whole wheat is your first ingredient that's listed there. A lot of the times they'll market whole grain, but it will have a refined flour as the first ingredient and small amounts of whole grain listed later. So this is a really tricky one. You want to make sure it either says 100% whole grain or whole wheat, or that ingredient is listed first on the ingredient list. And you can always double check by looking at the label and looking at the fiber. The fiber content of a true whole grain, whole wheat product should be more than its counterpart that's not whole wheat or whole grain. So you can do some comparisons there in the store. Made with real fruit. I put some fruit snacks on here. Again, like the veggie straws, they're pulling you in to think it's better than maybe gummy bears because it has fresh fruit in it, but it's not better. I'd much rather you eat some grapes, eat a whole piece of fruit, than think you're getting your fruit from these fruit snacks. Reduced fat or fat-free products are often not better products or snacks. Not a fan at all of reduced fat cheese. I don't know why people may eat that unless you don't mind the taste, but choosing the full fat product, like we talked about, with protein and fiber helping to fill us up for longer, fat does that as well. And so if we're choosing a lot of fat-free products or reduced fat products, that can be another reason why we're often hungry, why the foods aren't having staying power. So I'd encourage you to move away from reduced fat or fat-free, especially because if it's a packaged food and you're buying that, they often replace the fat that they pull out with something else. And generally that's added sugar or sodium. And so, like we said, we want to choose products that are as low in added sugar as possible. We might be thinking we're doing well by eating less fat, but that could really skyrocket our intake of added sugar by making that swap. Gluten-free, grain-free, those are all the rage right now. Oftentimes, those products can be more processed or worse than the original. And really, following a gluten-free diet should be for people with known celiac disease, or they have known reactions to gluten, not just because you're trying to choose healthier foods or lose weight or any sort of things like that. I show you here that there are gluten-free Oreos. Those do not make them a better choice than regular Oreos. Those 100-calorie packs are not going to fill you up. If you eat them, you're going to be hungry really soon after. So those don't make a good snack often. Just because you see the word plant-based on something doesn't mean it's better either. So really watch for these marketing terms and try not to get sucked in by them. Okay, and so to touch on mindful snacking a little bit, this is similar to that concept of intuitive eating. It's really about being fully present in the moment when you're eating with intention and attention. Snacking is so much more than just what you eat, it's why you're eating too. And so these are some good questions to ask yourself prior to snacking to really set the tone of why and what and how. So question number one, it's important to ask, why am I snacking? Really define that for yourself. Are you snacking because you need energy, because you're truly hungry? Are you snacking because you're bored and you're just trying to fill some time and space? Are you being pressured? Is this a social setting? Are you really hungry at this social setting? Are you rewarding yourself? I would encourage you not to use food as treats or rewards. This can create a relationship with food that puts it on a pedestal. It gives it special qualities, and food is food. Food is here to nourish us, to give us energy, to allow us to do the things in life we enjoy. It's not necessarily something you should say something like, if I do something good, then I get this ice cream cone. That's creating a negative relationship with food. So think about if you're doing that often, and think about what other type of reward system you might be able to set yourself up with. Rewards are good, but not so much when they're centered around food. So can you, buy a new pair of tennis shoes? Can you treat yourself with a visit to your favorite store? Things like that. Question two, I want you to ask, what do I want for a snack? So instead of just seeing something and reaching for it, really ask yourself what you're feeling like. Are you feeling like something crunchy? Are you feeling like something hot or cold, sweet or savory? This helps to slow things down and really make sure you're going to be satisfied after your snack. Once you do this, it's important to portion out what you want. I would encourage you to never eat from the main bag. So whether that means pre-portioning things out in smaller baggies ahead of time, or pouring something into a bowl. This is especially important if you know you're going to be eating while distracted. It creates an end point to the snack so you can reassess and ask yourself, do I want more? Am I hungry for more? Versus eating through the bag and realizing it's gone when it's a little bit too late. Again, check in with yourself throughout the snack too, and ask yourself where you are on your hunger and fullness scale. Third question would be, how can I savor my snack? So instead of just wolfing it down because you know it's going to taste good, I want you to be present in the moment. Use your senses. Acknowledge how it tastes. Acknowledge the textures, the shapes, the colors. Being in tune with your food, and even taking it a step further and thinking about where it came from. We're so disconnected these days from our food sources and our food supply. We think food comes directly from the grocery store, and there's so much work that it took to get your food in front of you. So acknowledging that it grew on a farm, it was harvested, it took all these steps to get here, can create some feelings of gratefulness that might help you to slow down and really savor the experience. So think of eating as an experience and not necessarily something you're doing just because. And lastly, another tip is to make snacking easy. So we're not going to do something long term. We're not going to do something consistently if we feel it's hard. We need things that we can stick to. So I want you to find your handful of smart snacks that you can have always as your go-tos, that you can enjoy, that are easy to put together. I don't want you spending hours in the kitchen if that's not what you enjoy. But come up with your rotation and really plan for those snacks. So we want these ingredients to be in our home and readily accessible. So we often will make lists and plan ahead for our meals for the week, but I also want you to incorporate your snacks in this planning process so it's not an afterthought. Think about what your snacks are going to be for the week, plan them out, and make sure you pick up the ingredients you need at the store. It's important to be more proactive instead of reactive, because when we're hungry and we're going to reach for a snack, we're going to reach for what's readily available. We want to make sure those are smart choices and that we have those choices easily on hand. I want you to identify your smart snacking criteria so it becomes more easy to make these combinations. So do you have a specific added sugar or protein goal? Establish when you're going to start snacking and when you're going to stop. Always include that nutrient-rich ingredient, which is generally fruit or vegetable. I have a photo here of kind of these pre-portioned snacks, this idea of grab and go. So using baggies, using reusable containers, having it laid out like this makes it really easy when you're ready to leave the house quickly or you need something quickly when the hunger creeps up on you pretty fast. And then leave things that you want to eat more of, more visually obvious. So leaving, washed produce on the countertop ready to grab and eat. We see it, we eat more of it. So leave more of those things on the countertop instead of the chips, cookies, cakes, things like that. We're very visual with our choices and our decisions. So leaving your smart choices out and more easily seen, you're more likely to choose those things. So to summarize, here's some takeaways. Smart snacking can be a very beneficial part of our lifestyle. It can help us achieve health goals, promote wellness. It's just about doing it smartly. Following the smart snacking formula can help you to have a quick and easy way to put these things together. These combinations are important. Protein, fiber, low in added sugar, and color are what you're looking for in that snack. Use your hunger scale to know when to start and stop. Learn to be in tune with how your body's feeling and what it's telling you. Practice those mindfulness concepts to be fully present in the moment when you are snacking, and make it as easy as possible. Make your snacks simple and convenient, and you're more likely to stick to your smart snacking regimen. And with that, I'll take questions.
Okay, so we have a couple questions already, and you're more than welcome to enter your questions into the question and answer that's found at the bottom of your screen, that little icon. Tammy is saying, the biggest issue I have is that on my first 2 days of treatment, I feel like I'm binging more. And I try the healthy alternatives, but nothing really ever sounds good. Do you have any suggestions? She's usually nauseous and uncomfortable.
Yeah, I'd say especially because of the symptoms you mentioned, it might be worth doing more small snacking, frequent eating. So it really depends what your binging is looking like. Is it that you're just maybe eating a bit more often than maybe you were prior to your treatment? And if so, then I would say that's okay. You're trying to curb the nausea. And when we're managing nausea, smaller snack size foods every maybe 2-3 hours or so throughout the day can be very beneficial for getting in nutrition while not making the nausea worse. So maybe in those instances, eating more often could be a positive for you. So again, identify whether the binging is a result of true hunger, or if it's a result of other things like we mentioned, the emotion, the stress, things like that. and try the more frequent snacks that are following the method, the balance, the protein, fiber, and see if that model might help reduce some of the feelings of binging.
Yeah, and I like what you said too. It's kind of perhaps her body's natural way of fighting that nausea is wanting to get those small snacks into her stomach. So
Potentially. And if you are saying you're choosing more healthful snacks, sometimes when we do that and we don't follow this balanced method, these snacks can be pretty low calorie or pretty low energy. Let's say if we're just choosing, baby carrots and grapes, you will be more hungry. That's why you need to fold in these protein sources to give it more staying power.
yeah, okay, awesome. All right, Lori says she had a question about the dried fruit suggestion. It seems to have a lot of sugar, so is this something to limit?
I encourage people to use dried fruit more as something sweet, dessert time, not to make it like a huge part of your snacks all the time. You know, it can be used periodically, like if you're doing a handful of dried fruit, a handful of nuts as a snack every so often. I wouldn't encourage you to use it as a staple, but maybe something if like you're looking for a dessert, view it as that.
Mhm.
Um, or if you're folding small amounts into like a trail mix, small bites here and there is not going to be a big deal. I'd much rather you eat like a whole piece of fruit instead of dried fruit as a snack.
So there's another question with nuts. Just eating nuts by itself, is that enough to fill you, or do you still suggest they combine it with the yogurt, they combine it with something else?
I would, so to create like the ideal snack, like we talked about, I would mix it with something else. Think about think about the volume that food takes up in your stomach. So nuts are very nutrient dense. They have protein, they have fiber, they have a lot of nutrients in them. But a handful of nuts in your stomach, if you can visualize that, doesn't take up a lot of room. If you're adding other things, if you're adding fruit or veggie, those give us a lot of volume. And so we're more likely to feel fuller longer when we choose foods with higher volume power. So
Yeah,
that's another good reason why those combinations are important.
yeah, that's a good point. We do have time for a couple. Oh, we're getting those couple more questions. So they had a question, you've had experience working with cancer patients, and we know that one of the side effects of the cancer treatments is chemo brain or brain fog. Are there any snacks that you've seen help decrease this symptom?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know if I've read research like this food helps specifically with brain fog, but we do know there are a lot of components of food that help with our overall brain function. And so it might be interesting to incorporate some of those foods or ingredients into your regimen. I'm thinking of things like omega-3 fatty acids. Those are really good for our brain health and brain function. They've been linked to improved mood, even like lowering rates of depression, interestingly enough. And so omega-3s come from mostly fatty fish. So a little bit untraditional, but like incorporating more salmon into your snacks, maybe meals. Um, I'm thinking like salmon cakes that you make from canned salmon might be pretty nice to like put together and a quick snack to eat off of. Other ways to get omega-3s that aren't as great as fatty fish like salmon would be like walnuts and ground flaxseed. Those are probably more easily incorporated into snacks.
Right, right. And those energy balls, that's actually something that I've been working on with my son. He's one, and loves the fruit snacks and the goldfish. So I'm trying to give them more
Great
nutrients.
alternative, yes.
Looking up on Pinterest, we found these really great, recipes for these energy balls, these pumpkin energy balls. And now he'll eat one or two every morning. And I'm like, at least
That's a
there's some
win.
kind of
That's definitely
nutrient in my
I love.
um, thank you. We do have time for a couple more questions. Um, we'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, Katie, while people are asking their questions, what's your go-to snack? Like, what's your favorite thing when you're feeling hungry?
I'm really, I'm not fancy whatsoever. I am a big fan of like Greek yogurt with fruit and nuts mixed in, but I also like, I do like mini meals. Like, I'll just grab like leftovers in the fridge, like in smaller amounts, and like eat that as a snack. So I'm not a big like snacky person. I'd rather have like a mini
Right,
leftover meal, I guess.
right. Yeah, I feel like I am a snacky person. I definitely needed this talk. One of the other questions I personally had was, we talked about in the beginning other ways to combat this desire to stress eat or to emotionally eat. What are some other suggestions you have instead of eating? What are other ways that you recommend to your clients that they can cope with these kind of feelings? What are alternatives?
Yeah, I think the best answer is to do what you enjoy. Like, what are your hobbies? What makes you happy? What do you look forward to? Whether that's like going out and doing a little bit of gardening, um, going for walks. Usually, being out in the sunshine can be pretty beneficial for our health and mood. It can really like help us to experience other things and trigger other thoughts that kind of get our mind off of the fixation of wanting this certain snack or food. So I find if you're able to get out of the house, a change of scenery could be pretty beneficial to do. But I think it's all about making a list of the things that bring you joy. What's fun look like to you? And it becomes not necessarily a distraction, because if you go and do something and you come back, you're going to think about the food again. It's really about addressing the root cause of that desire in the first place and engaging in activities that kind of change your mood and make you happy.
Yeah, yeah, and kind of closing that stress cycle.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And if you find that you're really wrapped up in the emotional eating and it's really affecting your health and your well-being and your mental status, I would really encourage anybody to seek extra help for that. Oftentimes it's something we can't do on our own, and we need a professional to give us those coping strategies, help us to talk through why the emotion is happening. So a therapist, a psychologist, a social worker, a dietitian who specializes in emotional eating, all of these people can really help you to get to the root of the problem and really address it head on.
Great, that's awesome. Thank you for that. I think that's a great place to end. Um, as I'm pulling up the slides to finish, I just wanted to say that I prepackaged my snacks today because I read I read your slides last night and I was like, I need to prepackage my snacks today.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you. I'm really excited to announce our Myeloma Crowd Community Nutrition and Wellness for Myelomas event next month. It's July 28th. It's a different day of the week than we usually do it. It's a Thursday. It's at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's at a different time as well, but we're really going off of doctor availability, especially in the summer. We have a big name coming to speak to us, Dr. Robert Osfield. Dr. Robert Osfield is a cardiologist with extreme interest in nutrition. He has partnered over time with Forks Over Knives, which is a nationally known plant-based eating group. He's super knowledgeable, and I'm really excited that he's agreed to come talk to our group. So this is one I invite you, I invite your friends, I invite your families, because he's a great speaker, and I'm excited to have you guys hear from him. We have other upcoming events in Myeloma Crowd Community Program. We have the African American Myeloma chapter on the 24th. We're going to be talking about how to find support, through the Myeloma Coach program. Chapter head and Myeloma Coach Valerie Trina will be joining the Myeloma Coach program director Rosalind Height to talk about the importance of the Myeloma Coach program on our journeys and the need for African American coaches within the program. On the 1st is our stem cell transplant chapter. We're going to be hearing from Marianne Downing and her husband as they describe what the SCT procedure is like during COVID, what are the protocols, and what did they do for extra precautions and in order to feel connected to one another, even though they had to be apart. On the 5th is our MGUS and smoldering myeloma chapter. We're going to hear from Dr. Jeffrey Zonder about clinical trials for high-risk smoldering myeloma patients. On the 7th is our Myeloma Financial Coach chapter. We're going to be talking about family finances and how to deal with those when you yourself are dealing with a chronic illness or your loved one. On Thursday, July 6th is our Fitness for Myeloma chapter. We're going to be doing another session in our stress management series about Reiki and massage. Sharon is joining us to show us how the art and practice of Reiki, a healing technique based on the principle that the therapist can channel energy into the patient by means of touch to activate the natural healing processes of the patient's body and restore physical and emotional well-being. She's going to be coming to speak to us on that, so I'm excited to learn something new. And the link to sign up for any of those events and even more events I have not mentioned are found at the bottom of this slide and will be sent out in the follow-up email within 48 hours of the event's conclusion. Another thank you to our sponsors, Bristol Myers Squibb, Amgen Oncology, Karyopharm Therapeutics, AbbVie Adaptive Biotechnologies, Genentech, Oncopeptides, and Takeda Oncology. And thank you to each of you for helping us build a strong myeloma crowd community. Katie, I appreciate you and your preparation, and I hope you all have a great afternoon. So thank you.